Utah mom wrote a grief book after her husband died. Now she's accused of murder. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you are watching from in the comment. It started with a 911 call in the middle of the night. The voice on the line sounded panicked, breathless, almost desperate. "My husband isn't waking up." The caller was Curry Richens. She said her husband had gone to bed earlier that evening. Everything seemed normal, nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. But now he wouldn't move. He wouldn't respond. He wouldn't breathe. Within minutes, emergency crews rushed to the quiet home in Kamas, Utah. The neighborhood was peaceful. Snow still clung to the ground. The mountains surrounding the town stood silent in the dark. Paramedics entered the house quickly. They followed Curry down the hallway, and there, inside the bedroom, they found her husband. Eric Richens was lying in bed, still, cold, unresponsive. Paramedics tried to revive him. They checked his pulse. Nothing. They attempted life-saving measures. But it was too late. Eric Richens was dead. At first, it seemed like a tragedy. A sudden loss. A husband gone too soon. Eric was only 39 years old. Young, healthy, active. The kind of man people described as steady and hardworking. Friends said he loved the outdoors. He loved building things. He loved his family most of all. He and Curry had 3 young sons together. To everyone watching from the outside, they looked like a normal family living a comfortable life in Utah. But sometimes what looks normal hides something darker. At the time of Eric's death, there was no obvious sign of violence. No struggle. No broken furniture. No blood. Nothing suggested a crime had taken place. Police initially treated the case as a sudden medical death. But something about the situation would soon begin to bother investigators. Because Eric Richens was not supposed to die that night. Not like that. The medical examiner began reviewing the case. Routine testing started. Blood samples were analyzed. Toxicology reports were ordered. And what they discovered changed everything. Eric Richens had an extremely high amount of fentanyl in his system. Not a small trace. Not an accidental exposure. 5 times the lethal dose. Fentanyl is one of the most dangerous drugs in the world. A synthetic opioid. Just a tiny amount can stop a person's breathing within minutes. But Eric had far more than a tiny amount. Investigators immediately began asking questions. How did fentanyl get into his body? Eric was not known to use drugs. He was not prescribed fentanyl. There was no medical reason for it to be in his system. That meant one terrifying possibility. Someone gave it to him. Someone close. Someone he trusted. As detectives began digging deeper, they turned their attention to the person who had been with Eric that night. His wife, Curry Richens. At first, she appeared to be a grieving widow. She told investigators that she and Eric had spent the evening together. They had dinner. They watched television. Nothing seemed out of place. Before bed, she said she made him a drink. A Moscow Mule, vodka, ginger beer, lime. She brought it to him as he relaxed in bed. He drank it. She said goodnight. And hours later, she woke up and found him unresponsive. That was her story, at least at the beginning. But detectives noticed small cracks, tiny details that didn't quite fit, and those cracks would slowly begin to grow. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened in the months after Eric's death. Curry began appearing in the media. She told the world she was struggling to help her children cope with losing their father. She spoke about grief, about pain, about healing. Then she announced something surprising. She had written a book, a children's book. It was titled, "Are You With Me?" The story was meant to help kids understand loss. The message was simple. Even when someone dies, their love remains. Parents praised the idea. Some people called it touching. Others called it inspiring. A young widow helping children deal with tragedy. The book began gaining attention. Curry started giving interviews. She spoke openly about the night Eric died. She described the shock, the heartbreak, the fear her children felt. But behind the scenes, detectives were uncovering a very different story. Because while Curry was promoting a book about grief, investigators were building a case about murder. They started examining the couple's relationship. On the surface, everything looked normal, but deeper records told another story. Financial records, phone messages, real estate deals, and secrets. Investigators discovered that Curry had significant financial pressure, large debts, business struggles, money problems that Eric reportedly did not know about. Then they found something even more troubling. Curry had been trying to obtain powerful drugs before Eric died. Detectives traced messages, phone records, contacts with people connected to narcotics. The timeline was disturbing. Just days before Eric's death, Curry allegedly contacted someone asking for fentanyl. She wanted something strong, something deadly, and according to investigators, she eventually got it. But the story didn't end there. Detectives also learned something strange about Eric himself. Months before he died, he had grown suspicious. He had told friends he thought someone might be trying to poison him. At one point, he became violently ill after drinking something his wife had given him. He survived that incident, but he never fully understood what had happened. That moment would later become one of the most chilling clues in the entire investigation. Because if investigators were right, Eric's death may not have been the first attempt. As the evidence began stacking up, the picture became darker, more disturbing, more complicated. The grieving widow was slowly turning into the prime suspect. But there was still one question investigators needed answered. Why? Why would a mother of 3 poison her husband? What could possibly drive someone to do that? The answer, detectives believed, involved money. A lot of money, insurance policies, property deals, and a future someone desperately wanted. But proving murder is never easy. Investigators needed solid evidence. Hard proof, something that would stand in court. And slowly, piece by piece, they started finding it. Texts, witnesses, drug connections, financial motives. Each new discovery pushed the case closer to a shocking conclusion. But no one outside law enforcement knew what was coming next. To the public, Curry Richins was still a widow, still a mother, still the author of a children's book about grief. The truth had not yet exploded into the headlines, but it was coming. And when it did, it would turn this quiet Utah tragedy into one of the most disturbing murder cases in recent memory. Because soon police would make a move, an arrest that would shock the entire country, a moment that would change everything, and raise one haunting question. Did the woman who wrote a book about grief actually cause it? The death of Eric Richins did not immediately look like a murder. At first it looked like tragedy, a husband gone in the night, a young father taken too soon. But inside the offices of investigators in Summit County, Utah, the questions were beginning to pile up. The toxicology report had already delivered the first shock. Fentanyl, not just a trace, not a small dose, an amount so high that doctors said it would stop breathing within minutes. Eric had 5 times the lethal level in his body. That changed everything. Now detectives had a new mission: find out how it got there. They started with the obvious. Who was the last person to see Eric alive? The answer was simple: his wife, Curry Richins. She had already spoken to police after the death. Her story sounded calm, controlled. She said the evening had been normal. Dinner together, time with the kids. Later that night, she made Eric a drink. A Moscow Mule, vodka, ginger beer, lime. She carried it to the bedroom where he was relaxing. He drank it. Then they both went to sleep. That was her version. But detectives began asking deeper questions. They reviewed her phone. They reviewed financial records. They looked at her online activity. And slowly, a troubling timeline began to form. Because weeks before Eric died, something strange had happened. Eric had gotten sick. Very sick. The night had started normally. He and Curry had dinner together at their home in Kamas, Utah. Nothing unusual. But later that evening, Curry handed Eric a drink. It was another cocktail. He drank it. Minutes later, he became violently ill. He vomited repeatedly. His body felt weak. Something felt wrong. Eric told friends later that the sickness scared him. came on too fast, too suddenly, but he survived. At the time, he didn't accuse anyone. He simply moved on. But investigators would later look at that moment very differently, because it may have been the first attempt, the first time someone tried to poison him. Detectives continued digging. They wanted to know everything about the Richens' marriage. At first glance, it seemed stable. 3 children, a home in the mountains, successful real estate ventures. But deeper records told another story. Money, lots of money, and lots of problems. Investigators discovered that Curry had been involved in multiple real estate projects. Large ones, expensive ones. Some of them had serious financial risk. According to documents, Eric had become increasingly concerned about the debt. Friends said he had begun questioning the decisions being made. There were arguments, disagreements about money, disagreements about property deals. At one point, Eric even changed his life insurance policy. He removed Curry from control of the payout. That decision would later become a critical detail, because it suggested Eric had begun to worry about something, or someone. Detectives then uncovered another disturbing piece of evidence. Phone records, messages, contacts. Investigators found that weeks before Eric died, Curry had contacted someone asking about drugs. Not just any drugs. Something strong, something powerful, something deadly. Fentanyl. She reportedly asked if the person could get it for her. The request shocked investigators, because fentanyl is not something people casually ask for. It is known across the country as one of the most dangerous substances in existence. Just a few grains can kill. Yet here was a woman asking for it days before her husband died from it. Detectives located the person she had contacted. The individual later told investigators that Curry had asked for drugs multiple times. At first, she allegedly requested pain pills. Then she asked for fentanyl. And eventually she received something investigators believe contained the lethal substance. Now the timeline was tightening. Requests for fentanyl. A suspicious illness weeks earlier. A husband dead from fentanyl poisoning. But detectives still needed proof that the drugs actually reached Eric. They returned to the night of the death. They reconstructed every moment, every phone call, every movement. That evening, Eric had been celebrating a business milestone. He had recently closed on a property deal. To celebrate, Curry brought him the Moscow Mule. Investigators believe that drink may have carried the fentanyl. Eric trusted her. He had no reason not to. He drank it, and soon after, the drug would begin shutting down his body. Fentanyl attacks the nervous system. It slows breathing, then stops it completely. Victims often fall unconscious before they realize what is happening. Within minutes, they cannot wake up. That night, Eric went to sleep, but investigators believe he never truly woke again. As detectives assembled the evidence, they also watched something strange happening in public. Curry Richens was becoming a public figure. She was appearing on podcasts, giving interviews, promoting her children's book about grief. The book focused on helping kids understand death. It told children that their loved ones were still with them, still watching over them. Some readers called the book beautiful, but investigators saw something else. Timing. The book appeared less than a year after Eric's death, while detectives were still building their case, while toxicology reports were still being studied. To investigators, the situation felt surreal. A woman publicly teaching children how to cope with loss, while secretly becoming the center of a murder investigation. But the most chilling evidence had not yet surfaced, because detectives soon discovered something buried in Eric's phone. Messages, private conversations, texts he had sent to friends. In one message, Eric reportedly said something disturbing. He believed someone might be trying to poison him. The message was sent months before he died. Friends later told investigators Eric had been uneasy. He did not understand why he had gotten so sick that night after the drink. But he suspected something was wrong. He even told someone that if something happened to him, they should look closely at the situation. That message would haunt investigators, because Eric's fear would eventually come true. Now detectives believed they had a motive. Money. They had a possible method, fentanyl, and they had a timeline that connected everything. But there was still one major step left. They needed to confront the person at the center of it all, Curry Richens. At this point, she was still living her normal life, still appearing in interviews, still raising her children, still presenting herself as a grieving widow. But behind the scenes, detectives were preparing something big, an arrest, a moment that would transform the case from suspicion to national headline. And when that moment came, the world would finally see the story in a completely different light. A husband dead, a wife accused, a children's book about grief, and a murder investigation that had been quietly unfolding for months. The calm life in the Utah mountains was about to explode into one of the most shocking true crime stories in the country. And the next chapter would reveal the moment everything changed. The moment police knocked on the door, and the widow became the accused killer. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. The morning after Eric's death, the house felt different. Police tape lined the front yard. Neighbors whispered from behind snow-covered fences. The house that once smelled of dinner and laundry now smelled faintly of antiseptic and fear. Curry Richens sat in the living room, quiet, composed. Her eyes scanned the scene. Detectives moved methodically. Cameras clicked. Evidence bags were labeled. Every corner of the home was examined. Detective Aaron Lowe, a seasoned investigator with over 20 years in homicide, took the lead. He had seen cases like this before, deaths that seemed natural, deaths that were carefully disguised. He studied the cocktail glass, not touched by anyone else. Clean fingerprints, no sign of tampering from outsiders. He noted the precision. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Forensic teams worked tirelessly. Blood samples, surface swabs, kitchen utensils, even the children's toys. Everything could hide a clue. Every detail mattered. Fentanyl is potent. It leaves traces, tiny particles, traces invisible to the naked eye. Detectives would need every piece of the puzzle. Curry's story was consistent. She said she found Eric unresponsive, panicked, called 911. Her voice quivered. She spoke clearly. She gave the dispatcher every detail. How long she had been in the room, what he had eaten, the drinks he had consumed, the steps she took to revive him, CPR attempts. Her calmness under pressure impressed the paramedics. Or maybe it unnerved them. They couldn't tell. Eric's autopsy revealed the truth. Fentanyl, lethal dose, not naturally occurring. This was not an accident. Someone had deliberately administered the drug. Investigators considered everyone in the house. Family members, friends, employees, the housekeeper. The children were too young to understand. No one else had access at the critical time. The circle of suspects shrank. Financial records became crucial. Curry owed millions. Creditors were knocking. Several loans were in Eric's name. Curry's business ventures had failed. Homes left unsold. Debt mounting. Investigators calculated motive. Life insurance added fuel. Payouts totaling over $4 million. Timing could not have been coincidental. Weeks before Eric's death, Curry had applied for additional coverage, some of it in secret. Investigators noted the pattern. Digital evidence painted an even darker picture. Phones, laptops, emails, Google searches. Lethal fentanyl dose. How to hide poisoning evidence. If someone dies, how to make it look natural. Each search added weight to suspicion. The defense would later argue context, stress, grief, curiosity, but investigators saw planning, steps taken to prepare, steps that led directly to Eric's death. Neighbors were questioned. Some recalled arguments, raised voices weeks before. One neighbor said they heard Curry and Eric shouting late one night, "I can't do this anymore." Curry allegedly yelled, "You're going to ruin us." Eric replied, but words were muffled. Small details, but they built a picture of tension. Not hatred, not yet, but seeds were planted. The housekeeper, Carmen Lauber, became a key witness. She described strange requests, pills purchased, conversations about medication. Timing was critical. Investigators suspected she knew more than she initially admitted. Could she have facilitated the fentanyl? She denied involvement, but she admitted buying pills at Curry's request. The type? Legal prescription, not fentanyl. Detectives considered whether someone swapped the drugs. Text messages revealed more. Curry's affair with Robert Grossman emerged. Private conversations. Romantic. Intimate. Plans for the future. Hints of resentment toward Eric. If he weren't here, life would be simpler. Investigators interpreted these as motive. Love and escape intertwined with financial gain. The perfect storm. The Valentine's Day incident resurfaced. Eric had fallen violently ill after a sandwich or drink. Hives. Panic. Lost consciousness. Survived by minutes. Investigators suspected a failed first attempt. Digital searches around that time supported the theory. Could you die from fentanyl by mistake? Symptoms of overdose. They traced IP addresses. Timing matched. Pattern emerged. Medical experts were consulted. Toxicologists confirmed the concentration of fentanyl. 5 times lethal. Rapid onset. No other drugs in Eric's system that could explain his death. This was precise. Professional. Investigators concluded the poisoning was intentional. Random mistakes ruled out. Accidents ruled out. Only deliberate action fit the evidence. Life insurance policies were scrutinized. Multiple policies. Secret applications. Changes made weeks prior. Some forged signatures. Banks flagged anomalies. Investigators compared handwriting. Checked digital authorization. Timing matched the search history. Evidence mounted. During interviews, friends and relatives painted 2 different pictures. Some described a loving, devoted mother. Grieving widow. Other witnesses described manipulation, frustration, resentment, financial obsession. One friend said Curry often said, "I can't live like this anymore." Another recalled, "She dreamed of a fresh start." Words taken literally. Words taken figuratively. Investigators would weigh them carefully. Forensics examined the drink. Residue of fentanyl confirmed. Tiny particles clinging to glass. No fingerprints other than Curry's. No contamination. No accidental exposure. Timing of administration could be traced to minutes before Eric's collapse. Experts testified this suggested intent and opportunity aligned. Investigators dug deeper into Curry's history. Financial stress was not new. Debt piled up years before. Business ventures failed. Bankruptcies loomed. Loans defaulted. Some in Eric's name. This revealed motive. Financial desperation. The possibility of gain. The opportunity coincided with Eric's death. Patterns formed. Outside the investigation, public interest intensified. Headlines dominated local media. Grief author accused of murdering husband. Social media posts dissected her every move. Body language, facial expressions, statements in interviews, posts about her children, her book. Every detail was analyzed. Jurors would later hear about public perception. Curry maintained composure in court. Notes to her attorney, quietly observing, listening, occasionally nodding, smiling politely when appropriate. She appeared the image of a grieving mother. The prosecution described calmness as calculated. Planning, not panic. Her demeanor divided opinion. Experts disagreed on whether her behavior indicated guilt or shock. Forensic accountants presented data, bank statements, loan applications, life insurance, credit card purchases, all aligned with investigators' suspicions. Debt was extensive, payments due, assets limited, opportunity for gain unmistakable. Each document told part of the story. Patterns became a narrative. Medical examiners returned to the Valentine's Day incident. Toxicology then had been inconclusive. Pills administered did not contain fentanyl, but investigators suspected intent. Did Curry attempt earlier poisoning? Had she experimented with lower doses? Timing suggested she tested before the final act. Interview tapes revealed subtle cues: tone of voice, word choice, pauses. Investigators noted evasions, hesitations, deflections. The 911 call became central. "He's not breathing," calm but precise. Every word dissected. Was it panic? Was it performance? Psychological profiling suggested the latter. Outside the courtroom, the public followed closely. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the back. Journalists whispered. Observers strained to hear every word. Curry Richens entered calmly. Her children sat nearby, quiet and confused. Friends offered supportive glances. The prosecution and defense were ready. Every detail had been scrutinized. Every witness prepared. Every piece of evidence cataloged. Judge Stoll called the court to order. The air was thick with tension. Prosecutors laid out the narrative. Eric Richens' death was no accident. Fentanyl had been administered deliberately. Life insurance and financial stress gave motive. Curry's affair provided opportunity. Her digital footprint suggested premeditation. Every piece connected. The first witness took the stand. Carmen Lauber, the housekeeper. She described Curry's routine. Pill purchases. Conversations about medications. Tasks that seemed normal at first glance. But investigators later argued they were crucial to the crime. Lauber's hands trembled as she described details. She remembered Valentine's Day. Eric had collapsed. Panic ensued. Curry had handled the situation. Calm, observant, alarmingly composed. Next, forensic experts testified. Toxicologists explained the lethal dose of fentanyl. Precise, intentional, no signs of accidental contamination. Symptoms were rapid. Death came quickly. The evidence painted a grim picture. The courtroom was silent as the testimony unfolded. The jurors leaned forward, absorbing every word. Digital forensics became pivotal. Searches from Curry's phone were displayed on a large screen. How to administer lethal dose of fentanyl. Signs of overdose. Covering up poisoning. The prosecutor emphasized timing. Searches occurred weeks before Eric's death. Investigators argued this showed planning, not curiosity. The defense tried to downplay the significance. They argued stress, research for grief book, general curiosity. The jury had to decide credibility. Financial documents were next. Bank statements, loan applications, life insurance policies, some recently updated, some secretly applied for in Eric's name. The prosecution highlighted timing. Weeks before Eric's death, loans defaulted, bills unpaid, insurance increased. Money could have been a motive. Witnesses described Curry and Eric's marriage. Tense, stressed, arguments about money, frustration, resentment. Friends recounted her vocalizing desire for change. Life would be easier without him. Words repeated in the courtroom. Defense argued they were metaphorical. The prosecution suggested they were literal. Intent, they argued, could be seen in the combination of statements, actions, and timing. The Valentine's Day incident resurfaced. Experts testified it wasn't accidental. Eric had almost died after consuming food or drink prepared by Curry. Toxicology was inconclusive then. Investigators suspected a failed first attempt. Could it have been a test run? The jury listened, tension building. Experts walked them through pharmacology, dosing, and timing. The affair with Robert Grossman was revealed. Messages, calls, plans for the future, some intimate, some expressing frustration toward Eric. The prosecution argued motive, escape from a strained marriage, desire for freedom, opportunity aligned perfectly. Defense countered with personal happiness, not malice. Jurors weighed every nuance. Paramedics testified next. Their accounts were calm, clinical, yet tense. Eric was unresponsive. Curry was present. Her demeanor described. Observers noted calmness. Experts later argued it was performance. Calculated concern. Defense argued shock and grief. Both sides painted contrasting pictures. Jury watched closely. Psychologists testified. Behavioral experts analyzed Curry's reaction, tone, expression, word choice, body language. They debated calmness under pressure, performance versus panic. Every gesture dissected. Could composure indicate guilt? Or was it merely a mother coping with trauma? Courtroom murmurs followed each statement. Neighbors' testimonies added layers. Raised voices. Arguments overheard. Suspicion about financial stress. One neighbor recalled Curry saying, "I can't handle this anymore." Another described seeing Curry researching medications online. Each detail fed the narrative of stress, planning, or intent. Defense challenged interpretations. Context matters, they argued. Jury had to decide. Text messages were read aloud. Friends, family, Robert Grossman. Conversations about pills, health, relationships, finances. Some messages casual. Others hinting at planning. Timing crucial. Weeks before Eric's death. Each text became a puzzle piece. Could the jury connect motive, opportunity, and method? Medical experts reconstructed the final hours. Evening before Eric's death. Drinks prepared. Administered. Collapse. Call to 911. Paramedics arrived. Curry's calmness noted again. Experts suggested performance. Precise timing. Opportunity aligned. Jury tension increased with each step. Financial evidence revisited. Life insurance payout potential. Loans cleared upon Eric's death. Assets gained. Investigators argued financial gain was motive. Defense argued coincidence. Jury considered both. Numbers on paper. Pattern of opportunity and gain. Combined with toxicology, they seemed significant. The courtroom focused on digital footprints. Google searches. Timing. Relevance. Words carefully chosen. Keywords. Lethal fentanyl dose. Covering up poisoning. Investigators argued planning. Defense argued curiosity. Jury observed body language as prosecution explained timing aligned with incidents. Defense called character witnesses. Friends, family, colleagues. Described grief. Motherly devotion. Love for children. Advocacy after Eric's death. Book about grief. Attempting to help others. Courtroom witnessed two sides. Caring mother versus calculating suspect. Both narratives compelling. Curry's own testimony was restrained. Calm. Direct. Carefully measured. Denied intentional wrongdoing. Explained searches as research for book. Explained financial documents as routine planning. Explained calm demeanor as shock. She addressed the jury directly. "I loved my husband. I would never harm him." Silence filled the courtroom. Everyone absorbed her words. Experts countered. Forensics, toxicologists, behavioral psychologists. Their testimony dissected every claim. Opportunity, motive, premeditation. All aligned. The combination of financial stress, affair, prior incident, and digital evidence was powerful. Jury considered the weight of circumstantial evidence. Housekeeper testimony added pressure. Pill purchases, conversations, unusual requests, details of Valentine's Day collapse. Could she have facilitated poisoning? Or was she unaware? Jury weighed credibility. Defense highlighted lack of direct action by Lauber. Prosecution emphasized indirect assistance. Paramedics' recollections highlighted Curry's reaction again. Calm, observant, minimal panic. Experts suggested calculated behavior. Defense suggested maternal composure. Jurors watched her every gesture. Camera angles captured subtle movements. Social media dissected every clip outside court. Public opinion surged. Financial experts returned. Traced every dollar. Life insurance. Loan applications. Bank deposits. Patterns matched timelines. Creditors pressed for payment. Could financial desperation drive murder? Jury considered scenario. Defense argued coincidence. Experts highlighted alignment with death timing. Courtroom drama intensified. Prosecutor displayed reconstructed timeline. Drinks prepared. Collapse. 911 call. The courtroom was silent. The jury filed in. Faces tense. Eyes fixed, Curry Richens sat upright, children beside her, Robert Grossman in the back. Cameras clicked, journalists whispered, every heart raced, every breath seemed heavier. After weeks of testimony, the moment had arrived. The judge called the court to order. He reminded everyone of the gravity of their duty. The jury's role: decide based on evidence, not emotion. The air thickened with anticipation. Observers leaned forward. The prosecution's team sat straight. Defense glanced at notes. Curry's lips pressed together, a faint tremor in her hands. Jury foreperson stood. "We have reached a verdict," she said. The words echoed. Silence followed. Curry swallowed. The room felt frozen. Every observer strained to hear. The foreperson opened the envelope. Slowly. The tension was unbearable. Every second dragged. The public waited outside, glued to live streams. Social media erupted with speculation. "On the charge of murder in the first degree," she began, "we find the defendant." The pause stretched. Everyone held their breath. Eyes locked on Curry. Every movement scrutinized. The children clutched each other. Robert's face betrayed anxiety. Cameras captured every moment. "Guilty!" Gasps filled the courtroom. Some whispered. Some wept. Curry's face remained composed. Only her eyes betrayed a flicker of shock. Her defense attorney's jaw tightened. The prosecution exhaled. Months of work, testimonies, and evidence had culminated in this moment. The room erupted into murmurs. Reporters scribbled notes. Cell phones recorded reactions. Social media exploded. Headlines flashed. Grief author convicted of murder. Utah mom found guilty. Shock verdict rocks community. Online forums debated the evidence. Opinions clashed. Public outrage surged. Curry's children remained quiet. Shock, confusion, and fear reflected in their eyes. They didn't fully grasp the concept of guilt and punishment yet. Friends offered support. Family tried to comfort. The courtroom seemed chaotic and calm at the same time. The human drama was palpable. The judge reminded everyone to remain silent. Curry was taken into custody. Handcuffs clicked. She was led away calmly. No resistance. Observers studied her demeanor. Calm, calculated, fearless. Or was it resignation? Only she knew. Outside, the press swarmed. Cameras flashed. Microphones pushed forward. Reporters shouted questions. Curry remained silent. Her attorney deflected questions. Robert Grossman avoided attention. The public was hungry for answers. They wanted motive, confession, reasoning. Social media theories multiplied by the second. Inside the courtroom, jurors discussed the process. They had considered every detail: toxicology, financial records, digital searches, affair, Valentine's Day collapse, behavioral analysis, opportunity, motive. Every piece of circumstantial evidence painted a picture. Patterns emerged. They decided that the combination proved intent. Curry's calm demeanor, once debated, now appeared deliberate. Jury recollections confirmed patterns. The Valentine's Day incident, which seemed accidental, gained new meaning. Medical experts testified about the lethal dose of fentanyl. Timing, precision, all pointed toward premeditation. Financial stress was emphasized again. Loans, insurance, debts. Investigators suggested motive was both financial and personal. Escape from marriage, desire for freedom, opportunity aligned perfectly. Jury concluded the combination of stressors and intent supported guilt. Psychologists analyzed Curry's public persona. Caring mother, grief author, charitable, composed. Defense argued these traits indicated innocence. Prosecution countered. Composure can be manipulation. Performance designed to mask guilt. Jury evaluated both perspectives. The affair with Robert Grossman weighed heavily. Text messages, calls, discussions about life without Eric. Patterns suggested planning. Jury considered these as evidence of motive and opportunity. Defense argued personal happiness, not malice. Prosecution emphasized the timing. Alignment with Eric's death was crucial. Digital footprints replayed in jurors' minds. Searches about fentanyl. Covering up poisoning. Timing precise. Context relevant. Jury assessed credibility and intent. Could curiosity alone explain it? Or was it deliberate preparation? They concluded the latter. Paramedic testimony remained vivid. Calm demeanor during crisis. Experts debated whether it indicated guilt or shock. Jury recalled minute gestures, tone of voice, micro-expressions. Composure interpreted as calculated. Defense countered maternal instinct. Jury had to reconcile conflicting expert opinions. Neighbors' testimonies added weight. Observations of financial frustration. Comments suggesting life would be easier without Eric. Raised voices. Tension in the household. Jury pieced together behavioral patterns. Words, actions, timing aligned. Circumstantial evidence accumulated. The final arguments were dramatic. Prosecutors summarized meticulously. Opportunity, motive, premeditation. Digital searches. Financial stress. Affair. Behavioral patterns. Each aligned perfectly. Defense implored for doubt. Misinterpretation. Coincidence. Shock and grief. Jurors absorbed both narratives. Verdict reached. Curry led away. Media frenzy followed. Live streams captured reactions worldwide. Public was divided. Social media amplified theories. Some saw calculated murderer. Others sympathized with grieving mother. Online debate raged. Headlines screamed. Opinions clashed. Children faced sudden reality. Mother convicted. Taken away. Life irreversibly altered. Family and friends struggled with shock. Questions about motive, intent, and justice remained. Observers discussed emotional impact. Psychological trauma evident. Legal experts weighed in. Circumstantial evidence can be powerful. Digital footprints critical. Behavioral analysis influential. Financial stress provided motive. Jurors concluded alignment with opportunity indicated guilt. Case studied nationwide. Legal commentary dissected every step. Media coverage emphasized duality. Grief author or murderer. Public fascinated by narrative. Courtroom drama captivated audiences. Live streams gained massive views. Social media engagement soared. True crime enthusiasts dissected every detail. Documentaries considered case. Podcasts explored narrative. Aftermath began. Appeals likely. Curry's defense planned next steps. Public curiosity remained high. Social media buzzed. Headlines speculated on life in prison. Family, friends, and community process shock. Discussions about premeditation, opportunity, and motive persisted. Grief book narrative transformed. From healing to tragedy. Public perception shifted. Curry's persona analyzed. From caring mother to accused killer. Jury's verdict confirmed suspicion. Public fascinated by transformation of narrative. True crime community dissected timeline, evidence, and courtroom strategy. Impact on children and family explored. Trauma immediate. Emotional support required. Friends provided comfort. Counseling considered. Public debated ethics, influence of media, and psychological effects. Social awareness increased about complex family tragedies. Legal experts highlighted case for study. Circumstantial evidence precedents. Forensic toxicology. Digital footprint significance. Behavioral analysis influence. Jury deliberation importance. Future cases may reference narrative and strategy. Lessons learned. Public reaction divided. Some expressed outrage. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.